Welcome to our channel today. It's great to have you. We love you to hit the subscribe button and the little bell. And I'm going to share today and follow on from the last session on this war between Russia and the Ukraine, this invasion, if you like, of the Ukraine by Russia. Where's it going to go? What's going to happen with it? And where does it fit in Bible prophecy? What's going on in Bible prophecy? And I like to look at things and go, okay, do they line up with the Word of God? Are they leading to things in the Word of God? What's happening? Well, I shared last time about the wealth of the Ukraine, how it's incredibly rich in mineral resources, the poorest people in all of Europe, and yet incredible wealth in the nation. We talked about the fact that it has become that's a slight hiccup there, a geostrategic position. In other words, from a geography point of view, it is very, very strategic to Russia in many ways, mobility, etc. Plus, Russia have always seen the Ukraine as little Russia, as absolutely part of who they are, of their identity. And I shared last time how the NATO have really been wanting to have the Ukraine join NATO and join the West in terms of being set up in that way. Putin has not liked that. It's really a buffer between East and West, and Putin wants it back, and he's advanced in there. Number of reasons for that. He's actually called it a demilitarization and Nazification of the nation, which is pretty interesting considering Mr. Zelensky is actually a Jew. So the leader of the nation of the Ukraine is actually Jewish, and it is a move on Nazification. But I think at the end of the day, the Russians are fearful of Ukraine joining NATO. Plus, I think one of the things that Putin wants to do is advance and increase and bring back something of the Soviet Union that existed back in the early 90s and into the 90s. And he talks about the Russians, the Belarusians, and the Little Russians or the Ukrainians as being one people and one nation. And he accuses NATO of threatening, and this is his words, Putin's words, our historical future as a nation. And so he's going to make a move. He wants to expand. There's no doubt that Putin wants to expand and wants to enlarge. But NATO, on the other side of the coin, they have actually expanded and they're moving. And so we have this situation which is a push-pull situation. If we look at world politics, it is so crazy that we read the news and watch the news, and we are never shown what's really taking place, what's going on, who's pulling the strings, why it's happening. We do know that the world is in a war. There is absolutely no question about the fact that the world right now is in a war, but it's an economic war. It is a brutal war, and things are taking place, and you begin to ask the question, why is that happening? Why is that happening? Well, you can ask questions all day long, and there's so many things that really you struggle to answer. So I look at it and I go, what's the Bible saying? What's the Bible saying about Russia? Will there be an atomic war? I really don't believe so. I shared in the last session that Putin has made a statement that all of his weapons, his atomic weapons, which is a massive arsenal, by the way, enough to blow nations off the planet between America and Russia. There's enough firepower to destroy the world about 3 times over and leave it as a nothing. And so if they went to war, there wouldn't be much left anywhere, any nation, and Mr. Putin is willing to push the button. So will there be an atomic war? I doubt it. I think we're going to have all sorts of things going on, sanctions, people protesting, standing by, upset. There'll be a lot going on Instagram, people putting blue and gold on Instagram and protesting and so on. It's a little bit like an ant waving to an elephant, but I think we can finance and help the people, and I'm concerned about the people of the Ukraine. But what's happening biblically? Where's it going? What's going on? Well, I think one of the things that will happen is that Russia will advance. I think they're wanting to take more ground. I think they will. I think they'll aim in their hearts. I think there's a passion to restore what they consider was theirs, the old Soviet Union. I ministered I was over in Estonia and preached just after the walls came down. I preached in the former Communist Cultural Centre and had a revival there, had a move of God just after the walls came down. I loved Estonia. And so you have the Baltic states who are nervous at the moment, and NATO are saying, it's okay, we'll protect you, but there's nervousness there. So where's it going to go? And we do know that Russia will want to take ground. Will there be a great war? I don't think there'll be enough left after a big atomic war, really, for them to fulfill what the Bible says is going to happen with Russia. And I think if we look at the events now, there are nations looking on with great interest. One of the nations watching with great interest right now is Turkey. We have Iran at the moment, and as I understand it, the things have been passed for Iran to build an atomic weapon. That, as I understand, was passed within the last day or right at this moment. So Iran and the mess that's happened in Iran and also in Iraq is coming into a place that I think is going to be very much part of this whole event that's going to take place in Ezekiel 38 and 39. This great battle with Gog and Magog. And we see the nations involved there being separated out almost like a jigsaw puzzle being prepared to happen. We don't know when this great battle, which was called the Battle of Gog and Magog, we don't know exactly when it's going to take place. It could be way in advance. Who knows? I think all sorts of things are going to happen prophetically before the end comes. But Russia will make moves. And one of the great moves that the Bible says will occur is in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. If you go to Ezekiel 37, it describes the dry bones. Now, all sorts of things are preached about the dry bones, but the dry bones are strategically speaking of the nation of Israel that was scattered through the nations and at the end of days would come back, and bone would come together with bone, sinew to sinew, and flesh to flesh, and they would rise up afresh as an army. And God tells us quite clearly in Ezekiel chapter 36 and 37 that he is going to bring them back, and that this concerns the nation of Israel. Now, we can look at that in other areas as well, but it specifically talks about Israel, and then it talks about the nation of Israel living in peace in the latter days, and then the rise of Gog and Magog. And let's pick this up in Ezekiel 38. And the word of the Lord came to me, to Ezekiel, saying, Son of man, set your face toward Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, and prophesy against him and say, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. Now, if we follow through these particular names, Rosh, Meshech, Gog, Magog, and line them up, most Bible scholars agree that this is dealing with Russia and surrounding parts of that nation, and it certainly talks about a nation to the far north of Israel, and there's a pretty much the nations here in ancient, I think Josephus talks of them as being the Scythians, and the Great Wall of China was, as I understand, built to keep out those of Gog and to keep out the Scythians. And so we have this rising of a great army that will be a Russian force, certainly led by Gog, who may be a prince spirit. We do know that Gog and Magog will rise up again at the end of the 1,000-year reign. And once again, after Jesus has reigned for 1,000 years, they will rise up and cause a great rebellion again on the earth at the end of that 1,000 years reign. That's for another time. Maybe I've touched that when I was dealing with the book of Revelation. But God says, I'm going to put hooks in your jaws, and I'm going to bring you out with your great army. And he talks about Persia, Ethiopia, Put, Gomer, and Beth Togarmah. And if you go through these nations, you'll find in amongst them Turkey, parts of North Africa, Libya, Togarmah, Turkey, and Gomer, I believe, is that region of Germany, and so on. But here is a whole confederacy of nations coming down to Israel. And they're coming down in the latter years. In fact, God says, you'll be summoned down there. It's an incredible story. People think that the devil's plan is the big plan. I want to tell you something right now. God has hooks in the jaws of the nations. He is actually drawing nations to a great showdown like high noon, where the nations of the earth are actually going to confront the one whose name is blasphemed all over the nations. The nations are being pulled into the Bible. The Bible speaks of it as come into the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley where God will judge. And God says, wake up, you mighty men. Come on, bring your strongest of men down and come down and meet me in the valley. Because God is getting ready. The name of Jesus has been blasphemed across the earth. The sin has risen like a stench out of hell to the nostrils of God. And there is coming a great moment in history when King Jesus and the nations of the earth are going to have a head-on collision. And I have some news for you. If you're not a Christian and you want to know who's going to win, there is one winner, Jesus of Nazareth, will win, hands down, and every eye of the earth is going to see him. People are going to, people in the world living wrong are going to, and great men and some of these great politicians and some of these great despots will run into caves and say, please fall on us and hide us from the wrath of him who sits on the throne and the Lamb. And I'm starting to preach right now, Jesus is coming soon. You need to get ready. The world, in all of its filth and stink and pride and economic mess and everything else, it's all going to see Jesus head on. And I want to be living for Jesus right now. I'll tell you very honestly, I don't want to confront the wrath of Almighty God when the indignation rises in the nostrils of God and he says, I've had enough. When Antichrist takes the seat on the throne in Jerusalem, says, I am God, at that point, the Father will look and go, who is this imposter sitting in the place of my Son? And it will be smack, smack, smack. And I am thankful in God that I will have been taken out on the rapture of the saints and not have to go through all that. In the meantime, I think we're going to have a great revival on the planet. I do believe we're going to have a great revival on planet Earth, a huge revival. God's not coming back for a wishy-washy, watered-down Tiny Tim tiptoeing through the tulips wishy-washy church. He's coming back for a real church, a church that's got white robes and full of power, not some little half-baked, compromising little watered-down church. He's coming back for a real church. I feel like I'm preaching right now, but man alive, there's some good stuff in this. And so here comes this great army coming down against Jerusalem. And they're coming down, and if you read the scriptures, it says they're coming down for spoil. And Israel is now providing massive stuff to the earth. The stuff that's there in Israel and the wealth in Israel is going to be revealed to the world in a great way. In fact, we have big supplies of gas, natural gas, being sold to Egypt, and Egypt is delivering them into Europe out of Israel. Israel is a place of incredible wealth, and the world's going to look upon it, and the time will come when these nations will come against Israel. Russia will come down. They will have with them Turkey, Iran, Iraq, coming across, these other nations coming up from basically the top of Africa, going to be coming over, this great army that's going to be coming against Israel. But God says, I'm going to do something in that day. And he says, not for your sake, O Israel, but for my name's sake, that you've blasphemed among the nations. And he said, I'm going to be glorified in this. And this nation will come with one aim, to destroy Israel and take all of their resources and gather it all. And Russia will be leading this thing. And God says, guys, you fight with me right now. And they will confront the living God who says, I'm going to do this for my name's sake. The world's going to look and see that you don't mess with God. Now, exactly when this takes place, it could happen soon. Some people place it in the area of Revelation chapter 12, when the children of Israel who are saved or are hidden for times and half a time are protected and nurtured through that second part of the tribulation, when the Antichrist goes after them and then turns to face the powers of the north. Some people place this great battle midway through the tribulation. Others place it soon, but let me tell you, friends, it's coming, and I don't think it's that far away. Who knows exactly when this battle comes? Is it in the middle of the tribulation, or is it the thing that will bring about a point where when Antichrist rises as a result of this great battle, he is able to make that covenant for 7 years with Israel? I'm not totally sure, but it is going to be very strategic, very impacting, and people are going to look and go, there's a living God not to mess with. Can I say to you today, there is a living God who is not to be, that was a bit of a high-pitched one there, not to be messed with. And so God steps in, and only 1/6 of this army will return. 5/6 will be wiped out by God, and it'll be an outpouring. Some people say it'll be an atomic thing. Well, God says, I'm going to do it. So if man does it and man's armies do it, well, God won't get the glory. God's going to do this thing. And they're going to go back tail between their legs, and it will actually take 7 months to bury the dead of this confederacy that's going to come against Israel. And so this thing's coming. When's it going to be? I don't know. I know the coming of Jesus could be any time. But I have a feeling God's getting a great church ready. Events are going to escalate. The Bible says these things we're reading about are just the beginning of sorrows. We see the coming of Jesus not too far away. In the meantime, we're not to worry. We're not to be anxious. We're to get on and win people to Christ and have an impact across the nations. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness. Then shall the end come. Fear nothing. Don't get upset. Don't be deceived by media. Don't be deceived by nonsense. Hang on to God. Right now, pray for the people of the Ukraine that are going through pain. If you can give finance into reputable outfits to help people that are going through it, my wife and I are already doing that. We want to get money in to help people that are in pain. In the meantime, I'm standing back praying for peace, but also recognizing that all the pieces are coming into place. Iran, they've got atomic weapons. They don't need an excuse to go down to Israel for goods, natural resources. They want to go down and kill and destroy that nation. They'll come freely. Turkey, they'll be in it. And so will those other nations with a great army from Russia. That's coming somewhere down the line. Who knows when? Is it worth being worried? Hang on to God, live for Jesus every day, recognize where we're moving, and know that today I've got some good news for you. Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, is still in total dominion. And he is the one with a big plan. He's the one with hooks in the jaws of the nations, bringing them to a confrontation. And when the confrontation comes, King Jesus reigns triumphant, unstoppable, as the eternal King of the universe, and he shall reign forever and ever. Amen. If you don't know him, I want you to pray this simple prayer with me. If you don't know King Jesus and you'd like to know him, pray this prayer with me right now. Dear Heavenly Father, just repeat after me. Dear Heavenly Father, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, that he died on a Roman cross to cleanse me from every sin. Today, Lord Jesus, I turn from sin. Would you come into my life? Wash me clean by your precious blood. I give you my heart. I give you my life. I receive you as my Lord, Savior, and my King. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in today.